Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to CCS Technology Group's webinar on 5 biggest challenges working through COVID-19. Everyone is set to a listen-only mode, and so if you have any questions, please use Q&A window to submit your questions. At this time, I would like to introduce you to Joe Reiplinger. He's a CTO and Senior Partner at CCS Technology Group. Joe, take it away.
Hi, everybody. So as Jonathan said, thank you for the introduction. My name is Joe Reiplinger. I am a partner and CTO here at CCS Technology Group. We've been helping people work through these challenges and learning every day. So I'm sure that you guys are learning too, and we're working through all these different things. We're going to try and keep the presentation relatively short today. Should be somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. We'll open up at the end for a Q&A session. Any of you will be invited to send in your questions. So with that, we'll get started and I'll start the presentation. Okay, so here we are. You've seen the opening slide. It's the 5 biggest challenges working through the COVID-19. And if we move through.
Joe, I think you're not sharing here.
I am not sharing, huh? Okay. I believe I'm sharing, so technology, right?
There you go, now I see it.
And you're seeing the screen that says a whole new world, right?
That's correct.
Okay, well, everybody, it is a whole new world out there, right? You know, before the COVID happened, there were some of us that were working remotely, but not that many. About 8 million people, or 5% of the population here in the US were working remotely on any kind of regular basis. So that's generally the salespeople or the people that worked from their home offices, hotels, road wires as we knew them. But most of the people went into the office, used your computer, and sat at your desk every day. Now with these mandatory state orders for everybody to stay home, it changes things quite a bit because most of us didn't have a home office or a place that was our work kingdom set up. It is changing things. So we can expect after this COVID is passed and we move on that people, about 25% of the people will continue to work remotely because we're going to find out that it can be effective and we can save on commute time and save personal productivity. So we do expect that, you know, we're going to see a change. You know, this is a paradigm shift where 25% to 30% of the people will continue to work at home even after we finish with this round of COVID. Next slide. Come on. Let's jump into a little bit of the content though. So one of the things that we want to pay attention to is working remotely is still a concern about being safe. We can't just ignore the fact that we still need to be safe out there. So those of you that have worked in a place or go to your local coffee shop, even though that's really not allowed these days, but when that does happen again, make sure that if you're connecting to an internet at a public Wi-Fi, that you pay attention to that. Because there are people could be sitting right next to you that have sophisticated devices on their computers, and they can essentially see everything that you're doing because it goes through this public unencrypted Wi-Fi. So we can't drop our guard. have to be aware of that. And if you do use public Wi-Fi, then you want to do something that you may have heard of called VPN or virtual private network, because that will then encrypt anything that goes between your computer and the server that you're communicating to. Another thing to think about is our data backups, because in the office environment, you're generally saving all of your precious corporate personal data to a server, and that server is being backed up and you don't have to pay any attention to it. But now in the home environment, if you create data and have that data on your desktop or laptop that's at your home, is that data being protected? If it's not, we need to think about how that gets protected, because the last thing we want is to lose that data any different from your home than it is from the office. We want to make sure we protect that. Secure drives, data is still critical, and secure drives are critical because most of us that are working from home are probably doing it from a laptop. Laptops go with us in vehicles. Maybe you take our trip to the store, and thieves are always looking for an easy target, right? So we want to make sure that if they do get one of our devices, that that device has been encrypted and they can't just take the hard drive out of it and access all of the data. If your drive's not encrypted, that is possible. Someone can just take your laptop apart, remove the drive out of it, connect it to another computer, and see everything that you have on that computer. So we don't want that to happen. Phishing attacks. We all know the good thing about phishing attacks is they just keep coming. We're always looking at what's happening out there. Criminals are always looking for confusion. Confusion is that place where they can take over and trick you into doing something that you shouldn't do. So phishing attacks are continuing. They're especially sophisticated right now in how they make it look like it's information about the COVID-19, either from the health organizations, your local government, or some other place that might be disseminating information about COVID. So be sure you know the source of that email before you click or do anything on it. And then last but not least, if any of you are using home computers or your employees are using home computers, that's not the best situation in the world. If that's the only choice that you have, then please make sure it's got an acceptable antivirus or some other program on it. But it's really not a good idea to use a computer that's used for home activity to also be used for your business activity. You know, if you're under the corporate, or you are a corporate or business owner, make sure that your employees are using those computers with secure things on it, just like you would have in your normal office. So get that antivirus out there, get those anti-phishing things, and make sure we're doing what we can to stay safe. We're going to show you some of the more targeted types of phishing campaigns that are taking place right now. So this is one. It's masking as the World Health Organization, someplace that might be sending out messages to people and identifying some things that are happening. So make sure that you understand that you asked, did you sign up for dissemination of that email or not? Be very careful when you look, because this is just an example of some email that looks like it does come from a legitimate source, but it really does not. Another one we want to show you is something that's a little bit more targeted. This is coming out and showing you, hey, dear sir, going through the attached document, we want to give you some information on how to stay safe, and here's some information. So just click this link here, and that link contains a payload to start some bad things happening on your computer. So again, if you didn't ask for it, be sure that you understand where the source of that email came from, and always be suspicious. So the best thing you can do now is be suspicious that it is an actual attack rather than a legitimate email. If you have the capability of validating or verifying from the person that sent it to you, then do that before opening it. And last but not least, we'll show you a way that you can try to determine what's going on. So if you look at this email, and I don't know how well it's coming through on your screens, Jonathan, maybe you can fill me in on that. But if you can see what we're showing you, when you put your mouse, what we call hover, over the top of a link, at the very bottom of your screen, it will tell you where that link points to. And if the actual words in the link, like here says cdc.gov, when you hover over it, you can see that that's nothing like what the real targeted site is. So that's one way that you can try and determine for yourself whether the email is legitimate or not.
And it looks good on my side, Joe.
Okay, very good. So that's the security aspect, and that really is number one. And again, the reason it's number one is these days we're talking about confusion, and that's when criminals strike, right? When we get a little confused or we don't know exactly, it's not the same routine. It gives opportunity for them to do something to trick us into doing something bad. Another challenge that we run into is bandwidth. It can be bandwidth on both sides, but normally the corporate bandwidth can handle it because you were all in the office and were able to use the internet. Home is a different challenge because home you may not have a lot of choices, especially if some of you are in more rural areas. Sometimes the rural areas do not have a lot of choice on connectivity or the speeds of that connectivity. So what you might find is that while that was good enough for you to do surfing or do some basic internet, trying to actually work from that connection does not work out very well. If that's the case, maybe you can kind of call your internet provider and see if you can increase the speed or do something to get yourself more bandwidth. However, if you're still confined and you're like many people, you have many family members at home that are all trying to use the same internet, and some of you may be trying to work and others may be trying to attend their school lessons. We're all competing for that bandwidth, and it can cause problems. So if possible, especially when you have to join a meeting or something, try to limit all the devices using the bandwidth at that time to make sure that you get as much as you need to make your actual meeting or things that you need the internet with to be something you can actually utilize. Again, the more devices you have connected, the slower your overall single network performance is going to be. One other thing is some people are used to, when they were working at home, they were used to being able to stream video, or maybe the kids are streaming video where you're trying to work. That can play an important factor on how well your work functions for you. So try to limit the streaming, try to limit the number of devices that are using the internet at any time that you're trying to work. That will help if you're having issues, that will help to improve the situation. The buffering talks about, if you have people downloading or running videos or the kids are looking at YouTube, try to stop that while you're doing work because that will improve the situation on the bandwidth. Last but not least, use prioritizations. You're sharing the internet with the rest of the family. So if you guys can prioritize who gets to use the internet when, we highly suggest that would help. And especially if you have a scheduled client meeting or something, to make sure that you're getting the bandwidth you need when you need it. Productivity. boy, oh boy, how many of you are seeing that site that we see the picture of, where is not only you, but your husband or spouse and a couple of kids, and you're all sitting at your new office, which is the kitchen table, and all trying to use the internet and do things at the same time. And holy cow, you know, what kind of a day is that? So what we're finding, and I don't think this is anything new for anybody that has worked at home, it's extremely important for you to maintain a routine. So just like you do when you get going into the office, make your day just as if you were going to go to the office. Rise at your normal time, shower, get dressed, get your coffee, get woken up, get ready to go to work. But instead of driving in your car and commuting, actually go into your private little workspace and get ready to work. It's really a great way to prepare yourself mentally to get that done. And then secondly is try and maintain your own workspace. So for myself, I have a dedicated room that I've created as an office for myself, and I can close the door and keep the pets and the spouse out, and actually can concentrate on work. But if I'm trying to do that at the kitchen table, interruptions happen. You know, the cat comes and sits on the computer for me, causes some headaches. So whatever you can do to create that private workspace is more to help you stay productive and function well during that time that you have at home. Set your work hours, right? Because it becomes really easy to figure out, you know, when am I working, when am I not working, and it gets hard to blend that. If you're starting at 7 and you have breakfast with the family at 8, and the kids turn on a TV show, are you getting sucked into the TV show, or are you able to stay focused on work? And likewise, you know, at the end of the day, are you really done, or do you constantly have that computer sitting there that instead of being with your family at that time, you're continuing to work or getting distracted? So let's try to do the best we can to maintain our regular work hours. It helps break the difference between what's home time and what's work time. And be ready for that video, okay? Don't be that guy or gal that gets caught when the camera turns on that you're still in your PJs at noon because you didn't get yourself prepared and set up for your meeting for that day. So again, you know, part of the routine, make sure you have a good routine, try and maintain a routine. It keeps your mind more healthy, and it keeps you set to be productive at your work when you're working. Another thing about productivity is, let's talk about your tools. Okay, it's been a few weeks for all of us now, so I think at this point you probably have the opportunity to be honest with yourself. Are you as productive as you are at the office? Why or why not? If one of the reasons is because you don't have the tools, or the tools don't function the way you need to, maybe then you need to have a conversation with your boss, or if you are the boss, to start thinking about what improvements you can make in order to keep your employees as productive as they can possibly be. You know, some of the things to look at is, how are your applications working? Are you using a laptop regularly and you're connected to the cloud apps? You know, if you're that way and your company has been on the more leading edge where you're using the cloud apps, you're probably in pretty decent shape, because those cloud apps have been geared up to work well in many environments, including away from the office. If your company has been lagging and most of the things are in your office, you're probably facing some real challenges in making your productivity from home work very well. Another thing that's happening these days is remote desktop. This is where you use GoToMeeting or some other type of, of remote control software that allows you to control your desktop or a facsimile of a desktop, what we call a virtual desktop, in order to run your programs or run your applications. If you're in that situation where you're controlling your remote desktop and it's not functioning very well for you, then you'll want to make sure that you continue to follow our webinar series, because one of the upcoming webinars will be how to deploy a better service for the remote desktop, also known as WVD or Windows Virtual Desktop. So that'll be upcoming. Next is to look at the connection. So we're isolated, we're at home. In some cases, there may be a person and you're isolated and it's only you. It's really important mentally to maintain some kind of team connection, some type of social connection to your other workforce members, to your other extended family members, friends and things. We found for ourselves here at CCS Technology that it's very helpful to do a morning check-in. So we have a Teams meeting every morning. All members of the team are required to attend. We even force all members of the team to share their videos so we can make sure nobody's in their pajamas. You know, it's nice socially. We all can touch base. We share some information, good or bad. Make sure that we're connecting with each other. You know, that social interaction and that team membership is extremely important with all of this disconnected, you know, social distancing that we're going through. Also important to plan. We shouldn't stop planning, right? You didn't have meetings at the office without having an agenda or some reason to meet. The same should be true, even though with the instant meetings we can have. We still want to plan those because we want to make sure that we know why we're meeting and have an agenda and productivity for the meeting. Just like the expectations, you know, without having a meeting without expectations is like getting in your car to run an errand and you forgot what you were getting in the car for. And then, you know, from those of you that are business leaders or leaders in your organization, make sure you share your culture. Continue to push that culture of your company, even though you're disconnected. You still want to push the culture out there and make sure everybody understands that they're still part of the team and that you still do things together. Along the lines of the other parts of the tools, Teams is a great platform, but there's also others like Slack and I don't remember the rest of them. Jonathan, you might be able to name one or two. But they have the meeting built in. They have chat functions built in. Chat should not be something that you continuously spend your time on, but it's great for those quick hits, send a message, I need a quick answer. So that's really good. And then use good tools. So I don't know if any of you, we probably should take a survey on this at the end of the meeting. I don't know what tools you might be using. But some of the tools that are out there have had their challenges. They've been overloaded and poor performance. If you have been experiencing some issues or you don't have a tool that brings that to you, again, you know, let's get you onto the next webinar, which will talk about Microsoft Teams. We use Teams extensively here. It seems to work very well for us and would highly recommend it. But Jonathan will be giving us a webinar in Teams in 2 weeks from today. So get signed up for that if you're interested. Last but not least, the number 5 issue for dealing with COVID-19 is your video conferencing, right? So what we have had to deal with is many people have desktops at home. Those desktops don't have cameras. So one of the first rounds that people had to deal with was getting a camera, getting it hooked up, and then once you had that, you needed to make sure that it actually did what it was supposed to, that left was right and right was left, and up was down, and all those good things, making sure the camera was actually functioning what you expected. It's also important for the camera angle. I don't know if any of you have seen the YouTube videos where people are working at home and all of a sudden that family member comes out of the closet or out of the bathroom rather, and they're only in their underwear and they're on the frame with a meeting that the person's having with all of their peers, and screams and the camera is quickly turned off and on we go. But anyway, pay attention to the camera angle and what's being shown in the camera. Another thing is, don't be that person that's late to every meeting. Try to be there on time, get set up, make sure that everything's functioning. Give yourself some time for the technology to work, because even though we use it every day, it's almost inevitable that one or two of us will have an issue with the computer needing to be rebooted or something. Because it's not functioning well and it has to be restarted. And if you don't do that until meeting time, by the time you get restarted and back in the meeting, you're late by 4 or 5 minutes. Another thing is what is your microphone picking up? In a lot of cases, it'll pick up a lot of noise or a lot of things that you don't want to go through. We have found that for the people that are in the more noisy environments, getting them an actual headset can help a lot. It takes out the ambient noise and the dog barking and the lawnmower going in the background, which Jonathan and I were dealing with right before the meeting started today. So those can help very much if you're in a noisy environment. If you are not the person communicating at the time, make sure you courteously turn on your mute button. But then again, when it's time for you to talk or you want to talk, be sure to unmute, because we'll all see your lips start moving and we won't hear you. So, that mute button can be your best friend and your greatest enemy, and that's a true statement all in itself. One aspect about security, and this again goes back to make sure you know the tools that you're using. The Zoom meeting, which is easy and has been free for people, it's been found out that it's been hacked, and all of a sudden you have somebody in your Zoom meeting that wasn't invited and they're listening in on everything that you're doing. So just be careful of the tools and who you're inviting to the meeting. And if you're the one that's monitoring who's there, if you don't recognize somebody, then make sure you kick them off. Okay, so wrapping up, let's cover here. We've covered the 5 challenges, but the bottom line of this is, hey, even though it doesn't seem like it right now, this is a temporary solution. It's not going to go on forever. We will get through this. We have to work together as a team. We cannot allow all these challenges of COVID-19 to stop our business. We have to adapt and overcome and make sure that we keep functioning and the business keeps functioning. If you're having struggles with tools, now is the time, right? So don't keep struggling. There are people out there that can help you, including ourselves. And don't wait. Let's help you be more productive and get more out of your tools today, not in June or July. And thank you all for listening. Reach out if you need support. We are here to help. I hope this has been, we hope this has been educational for you. Be sure to reach out to Jonathan if you have any questions. And with that, Jonathan, you can open up to Q&A.
Great, thank you, Joe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please, if you have any questions, please submit your questions to Q&A section.
If we don't have a lot of people, Jonathan, you can open up the mics too, I think, right?
Let me see here. No, they have been muted.
And there's no way to remove that?
Not on this one. All right. Well, I guess I can just quickly share with you, as Joe mentioned, that we will have another webinar coming up in a couple of weeks. It will be regarding how to conduct collaboration and communicate effectively with your team while working remotely. So we'll talk about some tools available, as well as how to organize and share information effectively with your team members, and basically how to improve yourself and your team's productivity. So it should be a very informative session. Well, Joe, looks like there aren't any questions. So I guess then we can wrap up here. Any
Okay,
last
well,
parting words?
thank you all for attending. We did stay on time, so I appreciate you all hanging in there for the 30 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.